Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about all things fandom and we talk about them in a positive way. If that's something that appeals to you, you've come to the right place. We're so happy to have you here. And today is Sunday where we talk about all things sci-fi, fantasy, and comic book related. And today we have some Star Wars rumors to address. So let's jump right into it. All right, so we have to talk a little bit about this Emperor Palpatine TV show that would have connected the dots of his past, any mysteries that we had, any questions. It would have tried to answer those. But is it a real thing? Was it ever actually talked about? Was it ever going to happen? And the answer isn't really as clear as some people are making it out to be. But we'll get into that in a second because our first topic has to do with the rumor that came out a few days ago that said that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be out by August. But is that true? Because here's the situation. Jeff Snyder had talked about this, saying that this was the case, that she was going to be out as early as August. Well, then they started backtracking this because it turns out when he said this, he was wrong. And all the places that jumped on the bandwagon that said it were wrong. Now, could she still magically step out in August? Yeah, but it's doubtable. It's actually very doubtful because what we've heard is that she may step down by the end of the year. That she's still expected to step down by the end of the year, but by the end of the year, we've now had Andor on the air. We've had some things happening. We've had movies that are going to be coming out, things that are going to be happening. So is it a better time for her to step down? I've always been very adamant that I love Kathleen Kennedy as a producer. She has produced most of my childhood. That's just a fact. She's produced most of the childhood of the 80s kids, the 90s kids, and the 2000s kids. And you can look it up and check that out. But being a good producer doesn't make you the good head of company. It doesn't make you the good head of a studio. It doesn't make you perfect for that management job. A producer has a lot of responsibilities, and I always have said that basically Kathleen Kennedy would have been better off if she gave the producing jobs to someone else rather than still try to be producer on the Star Wars projects after she was the head of LucasArts, because ultimately that is what has hurt her a lot. And you can look at it and you can tell that she had big ideas. And a lot of those ideas were talked about with other people. They were talked about with George Lucas on the sidelines. They were talked about with Filoni. They were talked about with the head of Disney themselves. All of this should have worked out very well. But what ultimately happened is that she was biting off more than she could chew for a very long time. And I love Kathleen Kennedy as a producer. I really do. But ultimately, you need someone in charge of LucasArts that is just going to be that. That's just going to be the person in charge of LucasArts. And with that being said, I think it is time that we see Kathleen Kennedy leave. But I'm going to miss her if she's not in a producer role, because ultimately that is what she does best. So basically, we can expect her to leave, but not necessarily when you think she's going to. Now let's jump into that second topic, this Palpatine TV show. Apparently, the actor was interviewed with Variety, and the topic came up. And I've seen a lot of people running with this, saying that it said this, or it said this, or it hints at this. It's not what he says, it's what he doesn't say. But ultimately, if you look at it, you have to examine the facts. You have to look at what is real versus what is hope. And a lot of people hope that there is a Palpatine series, and a lot of people are very vocal that there shouldn't be one. So, whatever side of the fence you're on, let's look at what was actually said. Now, in an interview with Variety, Palpatine actor Ian McDiarmid was questioned about a series that focused on Palpatine's backstory. His answer, both in terms of what he did say and what he didn't, suggests that there might have been more to it than just a rumor. Now, Variety says there was at some point supposed to be a series based around Palpatine. Was any of that backstory shared with you as part of the character's mythology? Ian McDiarmid then says, just the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. It's fairly obvious that my character murdered him on his way to becoming Palpatine. But beyond that, no. With George, you didn't discuss anything really. You turn up and you shoot. These films take a long time to make, and the pressure is intense for many reasons, of course. George was at the forefront of all of that, so he had all of that to think about day by day. He takes a good deal of trouble over casting, but once he's cast, then he likes the actors to get on with it. Now, according to that, we haven't gotten any word on whether or not there was a series or is a series. I think it's a rather vague statement. He's not addressing the fact that there was one. He just basically says he showed up and filmed. He didn't answer this question by saying, oh yes, there was definitely going to be one. Now, if there was one in the future that answered some of these questions, it might be really intriguing to see, because we know the past of Palpatine and how he came to be, but we don't know so many details about it. And that makes for a good, intriguing series. Although a lot of people will tell you the mystery part of that is what makes the character fun. Sometimes you don't need to know how the character works in order to really understand why the character works. And I think that that could be true here with Palpatine. Even though we are getting this interview from him, I don't believe that this means that there's going to be some secret Palpatine series in the works. It wouldn't shock me if there was, especially after the Acolyte kind of hinted at some of the things it did. It would sort of stand to reason that more would need to be explained to get us from point A to point B. And whether or not you liked the Acolyte, it didn't really change Star Wars lore. It just kind of took us to a spot that's so far back that in order to build up to what we know, we might need some additional information. We don't really need it because we know exactly what happened with Anakin Skywalker. We know how that story goes down. But if they gave us something with Palpatine that sort of addresses how he figured out how to sort of escape death, which he didn't. If you really think about it, the Jedi Knights did that before the Emperor did, which is really wild because they are Force ghosts, whereas the Sith are not really allowed to be. And I think that's an intriguing concept. Because here it is, they wanted a way to even prevent death itself. But ultimately, did they find it? Is there more to the story than that? Because if you think about it in a roundabout way, he did find it in that he learned how to clone a body and put his consciousness into it. So yes, you could say that he found a way. But ultimately, the Jedi found a better way because they don't have to clone themselves and put themselves into another body. They can legitimately be themselves the entire time, not have to make all this cloning technology work for them. But that is ultimately what Palpatine wanted. That is what Plagueis wanted. And a series that addresses that would kind of go hand in hand with connecting the Acolyte to episode 1. So I'm not 1,000% against it. But while I'm not completely against it, I realize that some people might be. And that is where I'm going to leave it off to you guys. I want to know what you guys are thinking about all of this. Do you think that Kathleen Kennedy staying just a little bit longer is a bad thing? Do you think that she's really going to be able to do anything incredible in the amount of time that she would have left if indeed she is leaving by the end of this year? Because that is still the rumor, but it is not the fact of the matter. We don't know exactly when she will be leaving. We just know it's going to be relatively soon. What do you think about that situation? And what do you think about this Palpatine TV series rumor that's going around that at one time, and possibly in the future, we could have an Emperor Palpatine TV show? As always, we want to know what you guys think. Make sure you're leaving us that comment in the comment box below, letting us know what you think. Don't forget to share this video with all of your friends. They're going to want to be a part of this crazy conversation as well. And then make sure you hit that like button. It's free, it helps the channel, and we really do appreciate it. Miko says we need more subscribers, and look at this face. You don't want to disappoint Miko. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell while you're there so that you don't miss a single video we do. And friends, at the end of the day, I know it, you know it, and Miko knows it. Fandom is family.